Hey everybody, we're just letting everybody into the meeting right now. So just settle in. We're gonna just be turning off all video and audio features of Zoom right now. But we have a few people waiting to come in. It's only 12:01. So we'll let everybody come through and we'll just give some intros and get started. But thank you so much for being here today. This is Boots on the Ground, Turning Your Passion into Action. With Pattie Gonia. And we're super excited to have you all here today and just to talk and jam about what it means to take action, in our world today. So a little bit more just about the GREEN program and me. I'm Lauren Hamilton. I am the Ambassador University Partnership Associate at the GREEN program. At the GREEN program, we really strive to empower and educate future sustainability leaders through our short-term education abroad programs. And all of them are focused on a different element of sustainable development. So we've traveled with over 3,200 students, young professionals, and just passionate people who really want to become, engaged global citizens. We're super excited to be celebrating the 50th anniversary of Earth Day this week. We've had a full week of panels talking with TGP alumni about different topics within sustainability and different industries. And today we're really closing the loop on, how to really tell the story of the environment and your passion for the environment and how to take that action. Maybe you have a background in engineering or business or architecture, and you have all that passion to really make an impact through your career, but you're trying to figure out the ways of communicating that either to your employers or your family or just to the general community of really how to, take action for the environment. And funny enough, Mobilizing Change is TGP's theme for the week, but it's also climate action is the theme for Global Earth Day as well. So we're all about taking action globally and within the GREEN program. And, we're going to talk about it more today with Pattie. Before we have Pattie come on, I just wanted to do a few housekeeping items for everybody. First off, if you've never used Zoom before, if you hover over your screen, there's going to be something that says a chat bar or chat on your screen. So just press on that, and that's going to be where we're going to introduce ourselves, talk about each other's thoughts on the topics that we're discussing on the panel or the conversation. And we just love for you guys all to, join in on the conversation. The things that we're talking about are not exclusive to Pattie and I or the alumni that we're bringing on. We really want you guys to all be involved as well. So say hi, tell us where you're tuning in from, and why you want to mobilize for the environment. We'll also be launching a few polls just to get, an idea of who you are and how you heard about this panel. So definitely, add it in there. And then just a few more things. We'd love everybody to change their name to include their preferred pronouns. You can check out my name. I go by she, her. And if you go over your name, there should be a button for more and rename. So if you could just rename yourself, that'd be awesome. And then finally, this is an open conversation where we're really recognizing that all of us are imperfect and in progress. So let's really all respect each other and have a conversation where we can all grow and learn from each other. Great. So without further ado, Pattie, welcome. We're so excited to have you. Yeah, can you just start us off and tell us a little bit more about yourself and why you're here?
Myself.
No, Lauren was like
me. Okay, so can you
I think we're all set. Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay, cool. I think it was telling me that the whole group was muted, so
okay.
I couldn't talk. But what's up, everyone? Hello, room full of strangers. I am Pattie, she, her pronouns, also Win, he, him pronouns. I'll be sharing from both experiences today. And I'm just super glad you're here. You are all smarter than me. I am literally a muggle at this stuff, but I am just super grateful to have a conversation with you today. So I do not view myself as an expert at all on any of this. If anything, I see my, not expertise, but my passion being actual action in our lives and what we can all do to really elevate like our climate and our environment, like through different forms of media and through different kind of in-person actions, and also what it kind of looks like to really think about like your life and the impact we can individually have along the way too. Because I think so often we focus on what our roles are, our titles are, our jobs are, and forget about what life looks like on the home front. So hopefully we can talk about that today. And I'm just very excited and honored, and this whole world feels very new to me. But I'm super stoked. So thank you for having me. And that is me, but I'm also like a drag queen, if you can't tell. And I'm also a human being that's born and raised in Nebraska, so the middle of the United States. I come from a very rural background. I come from a very binary queer experience growing up. Slotted either like kind of the gay or straight mindset, and because of that kind of like peeling back layers of toxicity within my own queer experience, and also freedom within my own queer experience, and what it looks like to also do that like in front of a lot of people, and what it looks like to do drag for Mother Natch. So here we are. I'm done talking, but thanks for being here.
Well, hopefully not quite yet. I would love to, I'm sure a lot of the participants here would love to just learn more about, how you found Pattie within yourself, and how, she has helped really drive purpose for you. I think that'd be awesome to hear.
Yeah, awesome. So I did drag for the first time like 2 years ago as Ginger Snap, because outside of drag, I'm a photographer and I think I'm really witty and I'm a ginger. So hence the name. But she was kind of like a bad girl Riri, like biker chick, leather chick. I don't totally spiritually relate to her, but she happened. Did drag. It was a super beautiful experience. Like on an inside level, it felt like a lot of pieces of myself that I never let ever be out there happened. But what also happened after was that I just received more hate than I ever got before from people that I thought were friends, people that I thought were in my corner. I have like a photography presence as a photographer online, and lost like 10,000 followers in a day. But that wasn't really what stung. What stung was like coming home to my house being egged, and the silence that happened from people that I just thought were my friends that just backed off slowly. And what I'm realizing also is that the more and more that I become passionate about like climate issues too, more and more people are kind of like backing off slowly from my life, because I come from the agricultural heart of America, and people often view the climate movement or the environmental movement as like the antithesis of that experience. And I bet that a lot of us are from more rural spaces. And I just think that there's a lot of work here to do, and there's a lot of heart to approach it, but there's also just a lot of like honesty that needs to happen too. I digress. So literally put my boots back into my closet because it was a very traumatic experience. Literally the closet's right over there because I'm in my bedroom because quarantine. Here we are, bitches. The real life truth. But I literally put my boots into the closet, and I didn't get them out again until I went on a backpacking trip with some friends and took a fun little photo on the top of a mountain peak in my high heels, kicking and being gay as I could be, and then recorded a few little videos. That video turned into like another video that went viral. I literally edited that video on like the couch with my mom in the room, and she was like telling me like what clip should go where. So my mom, I guess, is the real Pattie / environmentalist.
She's behind it all.
But she is behind it all. And my mom is a drag queen. She literally wears more makeup than I do when I'm in full face. So like I learned is my life. So but from then on out, it's honestly just been a journey. It's been a big learning, growing journey. And it's been me figuring it out step by step, misstepping, making errors, but putting myself out there. Not only like the environmentalist that I am and what I feel passionate about, but also like owning my own shit in this matter, like seeing what it looks like to also like strut in my actual life. And I feel like also really communicate with the world in different or in creative ways about the environmental movement. I think that's something that I feel very passionate about. And I think we all can do, no matter what our role or our title is and what we're going to go out and do in the world.
Yeah.
Because I don't know a lot of people that are reading climate theses. I don't know a lot of people that are seeing the 10,000 hours that y'all are putting into your education. And I ask myself all the time, because I live on kind of this other side of the scale where I just kind of produce so much media and like storytell so much. I'm like, well, what impact am I making? Because y'all over here are like making so much impact. So I think it's definitely a balance to be found. And that's what I hope we can talk about today. But that's me.
Well, I think that also, you know, people maybe on this call, I know that we have a lot of alumni here as well, and they might be coming from more technical backgrounds, because a lot of our programs focus on renewable energy and sustainability. And, you know, they come to us looking for that education and that hands-on learning opportunity, but also end up finding a lot of purpose driven back into them, because maybe they're a little bit, you know, demoralized by like the education system and just not feeling like they have that connection with Mother Nature, and then maybe don't necessarily innately have the like knowledge of being like, well, I can, you know, storytell through, you know, photography or videography, things like that. So do you have any thoughts on, you know, maybe for people who don't feel like they have a creative bone in their body, and maybe how they can tap into that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I don't think that, I think there's kind of a misconception to people about Pattie, or to me and my lived experience as Wynn, that I am like this extremely outgoing, like crazy, vibrant human. And I am that. It's like a crayon in my crayon box, but it feels like every time I'm in front of the camera, because I lived literally 10 years in my job behind the camera as a photographer and as a director. And so I very much was comfortable in my route. And I was like, I'm never going to be in front of the camera. I'm never going to do this. I'm never going to be the one in the photo. Like, I'm never going to be one telling the story on camera, because I'm the one trying to shape this other story. And so I think if anything, I've lived like 10 years being like, nope, not for me, can't do it. And then it wasn't until I kind of really said, okay, but like, what if you did? That kind of this has happened, you know? And along with that has come like this extremely personal journey of like tapping into many different sides of my queerness and into my lived experience. But I think that like for anyone, it is totally possible to just start somewhere. Like, it's totally possible to just be like, well, what if I just Instagram storied something about my research today that I found extremely fascinating and tried to make it digestible for people? What if I just documented my own work and told it to a group of like 10 of my friends some night when we were like hanging out? I don't think it has to look like this grandiose, like, okay, so quit your job as an engineer and then like become this like voice of, like, you know, it's the whole entire thing of like the teledoctors that are like, yeah, they're doctors, but they're also just like very public facing, like mouthpieces for the medical community, or not mouthpieces, voices. I don't view it as that. I view it as like, we can totally be all these things. Example, I worked on a film with REI last year about the plastics crisis. And I met with this nonprofit called Sustainable Coastlines Hawaii. And about half the people that run that organization are scientists or people who hold degrees in environmental research or sustainability. But what they're doing to storytell their work and involve community and people to be a part of it is the total game changer for them. And it's inviting people to be a part of this movement, to care about it, to see it firsthand. And they're seeing huge shifts. And Hawaii actually just banned single-use plastics for the whole entire island. And they were a huge proponent of that. So I think, honestly, we almost have to think about like the social play that every one of these topics like that we are passionate about like goes into, to see like, how can we involve community? How can we storytell around this? And I think that it's not going to look like you're just like start and it's this epic, awesome thing, but that it's going to be a lot of figuring it out. Plot twist, I'm figuring it out too. I'm a drag queen that has as much exposure as a drag queen who's been doing drag for like 10 years. And I've been doing drag myself, like my own makeup, my own hair, all the shit for like 3 months, 4 months. And before that, I had people like helping me. So like, it's definitely a scrappy project, and it's like very dirtbaggy, and I love that energy. And I think we need to lean more into that.
Yeah. And I think also, you know, I like that you mentioned that you had help and you had people that were like with you.
Oh my gosh.
So like, yes. Give you that support.
Ask friends who are photographers, ask friends who are videographers. ask friends that you are like, oh my gosh, I just love your Instagram and I love your Instagram stories. Like, how could I do this too? Or, hey, I love your like makeup YouTube videos. Do you think you could help me make like a makeup tutorial that also talks about like climate change? Like, could we like get together on that? I think just the more we can think of like making it as digestible and entertaining as a TikTok is really when the environmental movement's gonna like kind of make some waves. I don't know. I'm fascinated about how hard it is for people to sit down and watch even an 1.5-hour documentary anymore. Like no one really even does it. And I don't want to be discouraging to people, but I'm just like, think about it as a total opportunity to just storytell the amazing work you're doing and what you know that no one else knows. And think of this. Think of like your passions in life as like big circles. And for me, a big circle is drag. And a big circle is the environment. And that circle is growing at a massive rate. It wasn't always there, but is growing. And then like also a passion of mine is like photo and video. So almost Pattie to me is like this trilogy of circles intertwining. And I think we all have different passions. And the more we can combine them and overlap them is when shit's just going to rock. And when stuff is going to fly, because we all have such diverse lived experiences, whether that means you're maybe in this chat and you are a person of color, or you're in this chat and you are queer, or you're in this chat and you actually grew up on a cattle farm and you see this lens through an extremely personal take. Like all these experiences are so important. And when you can start to hone in on your lived experience as one of those big circles or something that encompasses all of it, that's also when it's going to thrive, because that's a world that you know more about than no one else in your field knows, you know, or very few people know. So I think we need to lean into like our own individuality and story as well.
Yeah, and I think it's important that people know that their lived experiences are important and deserve to be, and their stories deserve to be told, because I think a lot of people think all of us have a tendency to get very internalized. Like my own experiences are like, I feel like alone in them, and
oh my gosh,
you know, no one else is experiencing them. And when, you know, your story could be very similar to someone else's. So by telling it, it could, you know, touch so many people. Have you had any experiences within when you first, you know, had Pattie was like revealed through Instagram, where there was amazing connections that you, although you talked about people were pulling away, what was it like when people were coming to you and creating those connections and finding like, wow, like this is like really important to me and I'm living that similar lived experience as you?
Totally. Really important point. I think that like finding community in this stuff too is so important based off of your lived experience and your passion area. Like I never knew that there were so many queer people in the outdoors. Plot twist, they always were. No one was just noticing or paying attention. And I think that that's really important. Like I have met incredible queer scientists, researchers, people who are like seeking out PhDs, all the way to people that are just incredibly passionate and are like an eco farmer, well, no degree, who like haven't had formal education on these subjects. And it's been really cool to find like these affinity groups and to find community in them. And I would just highly encourage that like the more that you put yourself out there for the human you are, that's an invitation for another person to put themselves out there. And I think that's what the environmental movement is so often missing, and what the sustainability movement, all that shit is so missing, is like your individuality, you putting yourself out there for the human you are and the imperfect human you are, and all your fails and mistakes too, is an opportunity for people to say, you know what, me too. And like, thank you for normalizing this, or thank you for like sharing this. I share this too. I also think there's a disconnect in the environmental movement and in all of our studies and programs, that we forget that like, it's not like humans and nature. We are nature. And I know that seems like such a cliche thing to say, but I really wonder if we like feel that. Like, I really wonder if we feel like a huge way you can ally Mother Nature is to ally each other and to be perfectly the weirdo you are, because we are all weird ass humans that are just trying to act normal for each other, no matter what degree we hold, no matter like what we're doing, no matter what title we hold. And so I think that like the more we can meet each other on a human level, that's when we're going to see things just be really beautiful.
Yeah, and I would love to talk a little bit more about how people can find that connection with nature and find that maybe moment of realization that there isn't that separation, whether they're in rural spaces or urban. You know,
Totally.
I love talked more about, how people can find that connection, whether maybe they don't have the accessibility of going out west and going hiking. Like how can we all kind of find our personal connections with nature, even in a major city or, in a rural space?
Oh my God, I love this. Let's talk about lies I told myself. Lies Pattie told Pattie. Lies Pattie told Pattie was that before all of this that's happening to all of our lives, that I had to be traveling every other week to be enjoying nature, that I had to be, that like national parks are where it's at. I am so learning right now over the past month that like there's nothing that I love more now than like the flowering tree out my window or like the park down my street. That's like some ratchet small park, but like I so enjoy it and I need that,
Mm-hmm.
But I also think to me, like coming from Nebraska, like I never framed my growing up experiences as outdoor experiences because it wasn't like kayaking on some rapid and then climbing and bagging some peak. Like my outdoor experience was like on my grandma's farm or like in my backyard with like 100-year-old oak tree and like swinging on that tree. And that is such an outdoor experience. Like agriculture also is such an outdoor experience. And so I think it's like about like framing it whatever it needs to be for you, because maybe you're like most connected to nature by like really taking care of your houseplants right now. Like that is fucking dope. Like lean into that, like that's awesome, or maybe it's literally like being like, okay, you know what? I actually know this queer youth right now that does not have a good home situation. And this is my own lived experience, but I help volunteer at like a summer camp for queer youth. And I know a lot of those campers who aren't going to get to have summer camp this summer will be in their houses with their parents who don't accept them as gay or non-binary or queer at all. And that crushes my soul. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe one of the biggest ways I can like feel connected to nature is to feel connected to like my other human species right now and to like check in on those humans, So I think we frame it as like this grandiose thing, or like if we're not, installing 100 solar panels a day or like creating the next solar technology, that we're a failure. No way. Like, can you be a good human on human Earth, planet Earth, human Earth? What the fuck am I saying? It's Friday.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of Zoom calls.
Okay.
Raise your hand in the chat if you've been on a few hours of Zoom calls this week.
I think everyone. I see 3 people. So
oh my gosh, at least we have 3.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
Sure.
Does that make sense? I feel like I'm rambling,
definitely. No, I think it's really important that there can be such small ways that you can connect with the environment. And I also think it's great to also point of just ways that you can help your community connect as well. Totally. Whether that's supporting your local, park. And, my roommate and I have talked about doing just like a neighborhood cleanup where we just like go and pick up the trash that's in in our South Philly neighborhood. And that's not something that we're just doing together, but we're not, talking about it with like all our neighborhood, but maybe it's an action point that people will see us, that they won't, throw away their trash on the ground anymore. But there's just so many like ways to do it. And it's just about finding your, a way to take some action, even in this place where we all are, where, it feels very stagnant and like there's a lot of inaction. But whether it's taking care of your house plants or picking up some trash along your, like a neighborhood, things like that can all make an impact for sure. Yeah. And I love to see all the people in the chat bar, I think, are talking about how they're connecting with nature during this time, or just in general. So people listening, definitely keep doing that and talking to us more about what your thoughts are on different questions that we're discussing as well. But I don't want to be talking anymore because I want to bring on our amazing alumni to chat and learn more with you, Pattie, and you learn from them, and obviously our audience learning from each other. So first I want to bring on Vasu, who's going to be talking with us. And we're going to give Vasu a couple of seconds just to jump on. And all of our alumni are going to be giving a little introduction about themselves and have an opportunity to talk with Pattie too. So I'm going to turn off my video and let you guys jam away. But before that, Vasu, can you maybe just give us a little intro on who you are, how you're connected with Green and connected with Pattie?
Sure thing. So my name, thank you, Lauren, and thank you, Patty. That was awesome to hear. My name is Vasu Sojitra. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I live on the land of the Crow, Salish, Kootenai, Northern Cheyenne, Shoshone-Bannock, Blackfeet, and 20 or so other tribal nations, aka Bozeman, Montana, here in the West. And I am a disability advocate. I'm an athlete. I'm also a program director and a program coordinator for a few different affinity spaces here in Bozeman, specifically to people of color as well as folks with disabilities. And I was an alum with the Green program, I believe it was a while ago, almost a decade, which is surprising, in 2012. And I went over to Costa Rica to learn a little bit about their renewable energy. I also have a degree in mechanical engineering that I am not using, unfortunately, but definitely utilize a lot of the skills that I learned into my day-to-day life to create opportunities for myself and those around me. And then I ran into Pattie. I connected with Pattie today, first off, in person or in virtual reality, I guess, but also through all the affinity spaces that we are a part of within the diversity, equity, and inclusion movement specific to the outdoors. So given that Pattie has a very strong and loud and eccentric voice within our community, we were able to connect on various different levels and topics, and our relationship will continue to grow, I believe, from here on out. That's my little spiel. But yeah, I wanted to talk. I, again, am not specifically, but I work on intersectionality. So just bringing a lot of these topics to the table and how it all interconnects within our society. So I work in disability advocacy, adaptive sports. I'm also a pro athlete. So like, I want to ask you, like, how are you, I know we saw that video, like, how are you putting your words into action besides making that video? So what are you doing in your day-to-day life that is helping develop more equitable practices when it comes to specifically the environmental movement?
Equitable practices. In my life is Win, or in my life is Pattie, or both?
I guess both. I mean, it's all interconnected, right?
Yeah, totally.
So.
You know, I am, I'm constantly, I think I'm a really hard person on myself, but I think I've really tried to change that, being a hard person on myself, or thinking that I'm, you know, a hypocrite, or that I'm failing at this stuff, to thinking about, no, I have to change that voice in my head to be really positive and encouraging, and almost like gamifying things in my mind to lead to like positive action. Like Vasu and I were talking before this call when we connected about what are actual like daily actions I can do in my life to walk this walk I'm talking, to be like, okay, what does it look like in my daily life to use less plastic? What does it look like to have a makeup kit that instead of having 40 pieces has 20 pieces? Can I count that as a win? Absolutely. I do right now, because it's the best I can do with the knowledge I have. Can I improve on that? Absolutely. So I think it looks like really being honest with myself, knowing that like I'm probably not going to be a zero waste human ever in my life, but I can always be a less waste human, and I can always have these thoughts in my mind. But then also thinking about more of like this work in equitable work with Pattie and about bringing other voices in, I think it's in realizing so much of the work I feel like for us as environmentalists or in advocates or as allies or as people that are seeking to be like allies in progress, advocates in progress, is thinking about our capital. What do we have, right? So what I have as Pattie is I have a platform, I have a voice, I have a community, I have a lot of privileges. I have economic privilege. I have skin color privilege. I also have privilege within the LGBTQ experience of being a straight passing white cis male. So I think about what are ways that I can also invite other voices into the conversation through passing the mic? Or what are ways that I can create community with these people too? And what it looks like to invite other people to the table, not as just community people, but as true voices and experts, because they are the experts. I'm just the human that is very interesting on Instagram, and so a lot of people are paying attention. So I think that that's my role, is kind of to stoke the fire and to create the initial spark, and then to have other people be there as well. And I would love to pose the same question to you. I would be fascinated to hear kind of what that looks like through your experience, because you've been doing this for a decade now.
Definitely. Yeah. So, I mean, specific to the environment, as I was telling you earlier, I have very strong Virgo traits. I am a Virgo. And I try to, as you said, hold myself accountable as much as possible, to be a better human, to be a just human to everyone around me. And a small little trick I learned from another social justice activist was having a swear jar. And this swear jar is just literally, it's in my notes, and it's a list of things that I want to hold myself accountable for. So the first thing is, how many times this month did I drive 15 miles or more alone without carpooling? And if I did, I would put a tally under that. And then also donate $5 to an environmental movement locally. So all the money can kind of stay as local as possible to provide that local change. So little things like that. Other things are like, misusing someone's pronouns in public. And if I accidentally, use different pronouns than the ones that they prefer, I would put a tally under that as well and donate $5 to a local organization, Transvisible Montana. Like all these little things that I'm holding myself accountable for, because, and we were saying this earlier, is like, we can't really change the people around us. We can only motivate them to change, but we also have to motivate ourselves to change for the better as well. And how do we do that other than holding ourselves accountable? And these little visual cues are just some of those small little things that I've been doing that have helped me. So because of that, I've been biking around a lot more. I've been using a lot more non-binary language. Some of the other things are, trying not to interrupt different genders other than men specifically, just because in a lot of workspaces, women or queer or non-binary folks are the ones that are usually drowned out, or their ideas are fairly erased. So just trying to be really aware of when I'm talking. So little things like that have really helped keep me accountable, as I slowly develop more and more relationships with folks outside of my bubble.
I love that. You're so cool to me. Literally, for y'all listening, like Vasu is literally a DEI inspiration queen of mine. So you should all follow them on Instagram, because they make it incredibly digestible. Like, I think that so much of Vasu's work that I see, or that I don't see, is the work they do within organizations that they're a part of. And it's beautiful, and it's gritty, and it's a lot of hours, and it probably looks like a lot of what all of our work does. It's a lot of hours behind a computer. It's so much communication. It's so much accountability. It's a lot of energy. But also something that Vasu does do is tells the story, not only of that work, but of their own personal experience, like through their Instagram as a simple format, and makes it engaging for people. And it's incredible. It's definitely inspiring to me. So you should all follow them on Instagram. For real.
Well, I appreciate that, Patty. Same goes for you.
It's real. It's real.
Everyone follow Patty. I'm assuming everyone already is following you.
No, I know.
I don't know. I mean, I try to, again, we were talking is like, we have to work on our interpersonal level, knowing who we are as people, and then try to accommodate those relationships around us, and then start into our organizations. It's kind of like a step-by-step process. I mean, it takes years, decades, millennia to figure out systemic issues and how to provide inclusion, whether it be around environment or racism or disability or whatever, gender equity, anything like that. So I always stretch people to be better humans first to themselves, self-care always, self-preservation to a certain extent. I mean, I don't want people to live in an individualistic world. I know the US is kind of like that, but we also have to realize that there's so much interdependency in our world. Like, I would not be where I am without all of the people and all the opportunities that I was able to acquire and connect with. And that's just not like, I'm not living in my own bubble, walking around in a white box. Like, I'm connecting with the people, the other than human beings that are around me, this tree right in front of my face, like the birds that are chirping, like that's all helping me become more connected and grounded to things around me. And you were saying this earlier, is like, we can't separate our humanity versus nature. Like, we all have to work together.
Yeah. I have a question for you. What is one way you think that everyone, no matter their kind of discipline or interests within the environmental space, in any way, shape, or form, what's one thing you think we can all do on the daily to ally each other?
I personally think language. Like, we are always talking, whether it be in physical distancing or social distancing, we're always talking to each other still, whether it be on a social platform or over a call. I think learning different language and different ways different communities speak to each other and how we can communicate with those communities. So within the disability community, we use a lot of people first language to respect that we are people first and then our disability. And I always feel that as well. Like, I'm a person with a disability, I'm an athlete, I'm an advocate, I'm a program director, but I'm so much more than the sum of all of my parts, just like every other human. We're all unique and we have our own normals. So just understanding, like, we are people first within the disability community is so important. And once we start realizing that empathy starts growing a little bit more and more, and we're able to connect and build relationships with those around us, whether it be, again, the disability community or the queer community. Like, that's the number one thing I tell people, is just like understanding different ways of communicating, different language styles, different verbiage, lexicon, whatever it is. There's so many resources online about that as well. Like, if you just type in people first language, or different gender pronouns, or different types of queer identity, what does LGBTQIA plus stand for, like all these little things that you can just like type in, it will help like broaden our understanding of how to communicate with different communities, different groups, different people.
Love it. Wonderful.
Yeah, so I don't know, that's kind of my way. What about you? Like, what is one thing that you can do in a daily, have been doing, or working on doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think now during quarantine, a great thing we can do is just like read, like read things. That sounds so stupid, but like read things we normally wouldn't read. Like, I'm reading Braiding Sweetgrass, and it's totally opening my mind to so many different things. And I think that when you're talking about like language, I think also a big way that like language is a thing is like, until we have words for things, we only know what we know, So like, until I can understand different backgrounds and what they experience, like I only know what I know, and like, I don't know, I think there's a lot we can do to read. I also think in quarantine is a great time to just like make an inventory of all of your capital, of all of the ways that all of the tools you can put in your hand to take action. Because for so long, I thought that the only way I could ever affect the world was if I had a camera in my hand. And that was such a lie. And I think that like now my challenge to myself is like to think, no, like when Pattie, like drag isn't the only way that you can have an effect on the world. Like, what does it look like to just be a human, a neighbor? What does it look like to be like a fellow animal to other animals? Like, what does it look like through tons of different tools in my hand? And to remember that, like, the most important thing is not the tool in my hand, but it's like myself. And the tool can always change and will always change. I think we can tell ourselves lies that, like, we're only good at what we're good at, or what we put in the 10,000 hours in, or what we've done the research on, or, well, I care about the environment, but I've only studied solar. So, like, if I start to talk about like composting, then people will be like, what are you doing? And I'm like, no, maybe you are the compost queen. Maybe you are literally like going to change the world of compost. And yeah, you spent 8 years studying solar. I mean, look at your life, Vasu. Like, literally you're not even using a degree that you sought out. And like, what a beautiful thing to say, you know what? It's not leaving it behind. This is a different thing that I'm focusing on right now. Different tool in my hands,
Exactly. Yeah. And I always say, like, literally everyone I meet knows something I don't.
Yes.
Like, everyone has such a different lived experience than me,
Yeah.
which I have to understand, of course, and be okay with, right? It's like you, or like my neighbor, or, the elders across the street from me, like, they all have such different experiences, and they've seen the life through a different lens. And I have to understand that, they know something that I don't, of course, like,
Yeah.
and vice versa. And we can't be entitled to everything that we know, because that's our own lived experience and our own education.
Totally.
Everyone goes through something so different. And that's kind of the way I've been living it. Yeah. So, as well as like just understanding, like, a lot of different identity spaces are going through a lot of inequitable obstacles and barriers that have been put on them instead of them putting on themselves. Again, specifically to people of color or people with disabilities, like, we didn't actually put these barriers on ourselves. Like, access within our natural world, it's a designed, ableism is a designed oppression for us. Like, we work around a lot of these barriers as much as possible. And the quote I always use is, disability doesn't make you exceptional, but knowing what you know about it does. And that always hit me right in the heart, just because, like, I don't think I'm ever an inspiration. Like, we are so, like, a lot of the people in the disability community are so sick of the word inspiration. And like, we never think we're an inspiration. We're just doing what we can with what we have. And I think everyone is pretty much doing that. And, just understanding that, and understanding that, like, we're just out here just like the rest of us. We just want other people to know what we're kind of going through, just to a little level, to build that empathy.
Wow. I love that.
This has been great, guys. And I think that a lot of the, there's been so many action points for our audience to take from this conversation now. And thank you, Vasu, for joining on and popping on and so last minute and joining us. I think that we could all go for like hours and hours of continuing, this conversation. I'd love to do so, but I also want to make sure we give some other alumni opportunities to jump on. But before you go, Vasu, it was actually really funny. One of a student from your Costa Rica program, Jackie, from 8 years ago, is actually on this call right now.
Oh, cool.
And so she just gave a little shout out to you. So I wanted to mention that to you as well. Yeah, just loving how all these connections are happening today. And next we're gonna, be talking to Ty. But Vasu, before you go, do you have any last minute thoughts or things you wanna, chat about with Pattie?
No, I mean, again, we could talk about this for hours. I feel like the number one thing I talk about is equity intersecting with everything in our world. There's a lot of problems in our world, but I think the biggest thing is just like understanding who we are and moving forward with ourselves and together with our communities.
Yeah, definitely.
Love it.
Well, thanks so much, Vasu. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you continuing to chat on the chat bar, and we'll see you in a few minutes when we get on to the audience Q&A. We'll bring all the alumni back on to answer those questions and chat a little bit more. So we'll see you in a bit.
Good.
Cool. See you later.
Thanks, Vasu.
Yes.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Seriously, you're the shit.
Awesome. So Ty, we're gonna have Ty come on now, and this is a very small world, so I'm excited for Ty and Pattie to chat. But again, I'll jump off so that they can start their convo.
Hey friends. Hey Pattie. Thanks Vasu. That was awesome. So my name is Ty. My pronouns are he, him. I studied renewable energy with the Green Program in Iceland of 2014. I'm an entrepreneur and engineer at an agricultural irrigation manufacturer. My vision is to facilitate harmony between nature and society. This vision gets challenged almost every day at my manufacturing job, and people like Pattie strengthen those dreams that I have to make a healthier planet. So I grew up in Nebraska. I've been friends with Wynn for a while, and I've seen him transform into her. And it's been an honor to follow Pattie as she fights for the betterment of Mother Nature. So that's a little bit about me. I have some questions for you, Pattie. So engineers directly impact our planet, sometimes in harmony with the earth, but unfortunately sometimes with profit in mind. So, what would you like to tell these powerful people or companies?
Love that intro. And here is what's interesting. I have to ask myself the same question every single day, because I have to ask myself, in my world as Pattie, am I making this choice for profit so that I can have not necessarily like money flowing out of me like crazy, but so I can employ 4 of my friends to help me with this journey of Pattie? Or am I making this decision based off of my ethics and off of the betterment of the world? And it's been hard and it's been tricky and it's been sticky and I have failed all over the place. But what I can say is that like, I've never felt better as a human than when I know that like I've stood for like my ethics and what I believe in. And I've often found that making the right ethical decision to my ethics and to like kind of my code to also strive to help humanity, like those are the only wins that I've ever felt right. Those are the only times that I've ever felt like, yeah, this is it, you know? And I think it's really easy because oftentimes money leads the matter, the bottom line, the things. And we often think, and y'all listen, many of you are in or will be in like corporate structures of your jobs that I am not a part of. And so I want to acknowledge that your lived experiences will be harder and the hurdles will be more. Because I know that you'll have like managers or people like seeing your work and being like, well, are you making this thing the best thing for money and for our business? Or like, do you have your own initiatives and like your own things? And like, you're just a green person, you know? So just want to acknowledge that. And also like, just say that like my human lens of this is that like, the more that I haven't pushed back, but that I have like challenged with ethics in mind and with like nature in mind, 2 things. That's an invitation for people to listen, but not for me to come at as an expert, but to come at it from the lens of, hey, I'm really struggling with this. For example, I was going to do a gig with a brand where I would be traveling across country in a RV across the whole entire country. And like, not just like this, but just like literally this, to visit and do a hiking tour. And I was like, hey, I'm going to be honest with y'all. I'm really struggling with knowing, even though this is going to make incredible impact, the environmental impact that it's going to take to ride this RV around. And I said, is there anything we could do to compromise on this or to just have Mother Nature in mind? And I said, what if we, and I offered an alternative solution. I said, what if we just did the hiking tour up and down the California coast? And we truly made the hiking tour up down the California coast to just be half of California and just 4 stops. And we also made sure we had like the best RV we could with the best like fuel mileage. And then we did that and they were like, you know what? Absolutely. Yes. And they went for that. So I think to your question, I think it's just stand up for what you believe in and know that if you can share like your empathetic experience, people will start to listen, and that it's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be sticky. And that I think it's worth it at the end of the day. So does that answer your question, Ty?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
Cool.
Yeah. And that's great. So like I was talking to my mom yesterday and
Yeah.
she loves you.
Love moms.
Everyone loves you. It's awesome.
Oh,
But
great. But also
I
love
was
your mom.
telling her, I was saying like, yeah, Win is basically doing what I want to do, like promote sustainability and like, you know, get everyone on the same page with that. And like, I always thought that I would do that with my technical degree. So like with my engineering, which would like directly, you know, impact the earth. But whereas your story isn't as technical, but you're doing what I want to do in greater magnitude. And so that's awesome. So this kind of leads up to my next question. But technical folks like myself don't always have an outlet to reach and inspire like Pattie. So what are some tips that you would have for us? Maybe as we're talking to our peers, to other engineers, what are some secrets that you could share with us?
First of all, I need to say it's hilarious that you're sitting there saying again, yeah, and I want to do what Pattie does, because I'm sitting here and I'm like, yeah, I want to do what Ty does, because what y'all don't know is that like Ty literally lives on a farm that he runs and farms and grows his own vegetables and fruit. Yeah. Yes. Am I correct? Lives in a refurbished schoolhouse, so an old building, and has upcycled an old building into his home. And I'm sitting over here doing the thing that Ty wants to do, yet I'm flying everywhere every other week. I am driving everywhere to go to these things. I am not growing my own food. I'm using plastic. So it's interesting. I just want y'all to acknowledge all of us that are in this chat that like we always want what we don't got, but also like everything's not always as like good as it seems, or like also like I think that I just want to like acknowledge that experience. And I want to say that so what are things that I think that anyone who has more of a technical background can do? One, and I literally think that this can just be so fun, and it can literally be a just for fun thing that you can figure out and let it go. Start a TikTok or an Instagram or a blog for literally your work and like what you're feeling so stoked about. Because I guarantee you, if you think it's fascinating and if you can make it entertaining, like other people will pay attention. And just never forget that those platforms, even though they're seen as silly or stupid, can be huge. There is nothing that's got across more information for me about the climate in this past year than memes. Literally. I am not even kidding. And there's nothing I love more than an extremely well put together meme. It can communicate so much. So think about that and think about how that can work alongside your work as well. And if that means maybe that it's just your personal thing and it's not necessarily your company or through your role, that's awesome. So start those things. And two, like make this stuff like exciting for you, and it'll be exciting for other people. Like good vibes attracts good vibes. So for you, like in your like co-working space, when we are like done with a pandemic, but for now, when you're around your family and around your community, like show the joy that you get off of this and talk about that joy, or talk about the struggles, or talk about where this shit gets hard. I guarantee you people will start to pay attention and listen. Like I always think about, and this is just what Vasu said, that like, I don't walk into Pattie's world thinking that I'm ever going to change anyone's mind, because I don't think, also to quote a John Mayer lyric, that like the words on a billboard ever change anyone's mind. They don't. Like literally, you're like, you see the abortion billboard, you're like, I don't agree with that. That's never going to change your mind. Like wasted time, wasted energy, wasted space. But what I know is if I can get people to care, if I can create empathy, if I can story tell my lived experience and the dissonance in that, that's when people's ears perk up or their wigs perk up and get as big as mine. So I just think about like, start with yourself, make it fun for you, or share where it's hard for you. People will listen and people will pay attention.
I love that.
I love you, Ty.
You know, my cabbage is doing great. So if you want a little care package,
I would love a care package of vegetables. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. So just for y'all, because I don't think I really mentioned this, or there are a few people that weren't. So I'm from Nebraska originally, and Ty and I are literally actually an hour away from each other, and I just think it's so awesome. And Nebraska's cool. Y'all should come visit. It's literally incredible. You would never expect it.
Cool. Okay. I'm going to do
Next
one more
question.
serious question.
Cool.
So if you had a magic wand and you could change one thing about society to help Mother Nature, what would that be?
I think I would have everyone know that we're all connected. Can you hear me, Ty?
Yeah.
There's a little laggy. So that's what I would do. But also, I mean, like, I don't know. I think I'd turn everyone into a drag queen. I think life would be more fun. So Ty, I really need you to start working on your drag name. It needs to be something involving farming and vegetables, okay?
Okay. I love it.
Maybe you are
draft or something.
Maybe you are the Cabbage Patch Kid and you're just like a doll, but it's like made of cabbage. We can get creative.
I love it.
Yeah, and that's perfect.
Thank you so much, Wynn.
Thank you, Ty.
Thanks, Ty.
Those were great questions, Ty.
Thanks.
Thank you for being alive.
Thanks, Ty. And I think that, you know, you guys talked a lot about how to, like, coming from technical backgrounds, how to, you know, tell stories and stuff. And Ty, I'd love, before you go, I mean, you're an engineer and work as an engineer, you know, how do you communicate with people within, you know, your colleagues? Like, how do you communicate for the environment within your community as an engineer? Are you able to, do you feel like you're able to do that now, or do you?
Yeah, so the engineering company that I work for manufactures irrigation pivots. So they're big robots that go out into a field and they pump a lot of water out, and it's great for agriculture and growing food, and that's a need for the world, but it's bittersweet, and I feel like, I don't know, it's not always realized by all the engineers how much water we're pumping. And so that's like my biggest challenge, is communicating with them. Like, how is this affecting the earth in the big, like, sense? And so it's hard for me to communicate with my peers at work. I feel like my peers of my age, it's a lot easier, and it's easy. So I guess, I don't know. I haven't always found the most effective communication at work. So, but like Wynn was saying, lead by example. That's kind of what I'm trying to do. And he talked about, like, my garden, and I have solar panels, and I don't like promote that to people, but I just want people to know that that's an option that you can do. And if we all did it, that would be amazing. And the earth would be so much closer to sustainability.
Yeah, and maybe it's something to start, you know, telling your colleagues and implanting those nuggets of knowledge. And, you know, I think in our past sessions this week, we've talked a lot about that, of maybe your organization doesn't have like an underlying goal for sustainability, and how to start those initiatives at your organization. And sometimes it's about starting small, whether it's like a recycling program and implanting that, like, that can seem really simple, but then growing, you know, those initiatives from there. So yeah, it's great to know that you're, you know, doing that within your community. And I'm sure that a lot of listeners can, you know, think about some ways that they can advocate for sustainability within their organization as well.
Totally. Yeah. Hey, also, Lauren, really quick, I think this is definitely worth highlighting. So Ty asked the question, you know, what's one thing, what's one message, what's one thing you would do to improve things? And Vasu had an incredible answer that I just want to read from the chat. So Vasu said, put Indigenous women of color, Two-Spirit, and queer folks in power. And I think that that's really important to highlight, because, and I want to speak for myself, like, removed from my own queer experience, but mostly just POC and more diverse queer people than myself. I think that oftentimes they bring some of the most important perspectives and voices to the conversation. And what Vasu said later on in the conversation was, Indigenous people make up less than 5% of the planet's human population, yet they're protecting 80% of its biodiversity. That's a fact to just sit with and to think about. So I think when we're thinking about the people that we're interacting with to do this work, it's really important to highlight and to bring to the forefront of, like, leadership positions, people of color, queer people, and just more diverse background. And as I'm seeing like some of the names and faces, like I'm seeing a lot of diversity in this chat. And I think that y'all are going to be those people. So fight for yourself too, as much as you can. Because I think it's really worth it for you to take up space in these areas as well.
Definitely. And if anyone on the chat has a position of power within your organization of influencing hiring decisions, I think, making sure that you're making diversity a high priority within that list of criteria for potential candidates, and making sure that your hiring processes are, including, diverse backgrounds. There's a lot of resources of ways that you can make sure that you're marketing your open positions to, diverse communities. So I definitely would encourage people to, do that, especially if they're in that position to influence hiring decisions at organizations. And those are ways to integrate change into organizations, I think, too.
100%.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks so much, Ty.
Yeah.
We'll see you in a little bit, but I wanted to give our next alumni, Avery, a chance to come on before we go on to the Q&A. So Avery is jumping on right now. Cool, Avery, I'm gonna let you introduce yourself and have a little time with Pattie.
Sure, awesome, thanks. Hi everyone, I'm Avery. So my pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm quarantining in the Bay Area in California. And I'm an alum of the Green Program from Iceland 2014 as well. So I went right after my freshman year, so I was a little baby, but it greatly influenced how I took my path throughout college. So I studied environmental engineering, and then I pursued my master's in renewable energy engineering. So like Ty, I also come from a technical background. And I've always thought that's like the way that I could make the most change, but I'm excited to talk more about that in this session. My spare time, I love to climb, I love to ski, I love to hike. So I feel very connected to nature, and it's been my main passion in life since as long as I can remember. Now, currently, I'm a lecturer at Stanford. I teach 2 energy classes in the civil and environmental engineering department. And so every day is science communication, trying to build that technical foundation for students, but also beyond that, how to spring that into action and help students feel like they actually have a voice and a say. I have like a deep passion to inspire the next generation, even though I feel like I'm part of the younger generation, but I'm the cusp for millennials. So I'm not Gen Z. So there is another one to inspire. And so I actually have a passion project of my own. A few friends and I in grad school started this thing called Women of STEM, and we're on Facebook, Instagram, all the platforms, because we were looking at the gender gap in STEM, trying to figure out how to encourage more women and younger girls to pursue STEM, because the national average in the US for women that pursue engineering and study engineering in college is only 19%. And I was lucky at my undergrad that my class was 40% and environmental engineering was 83%, but that's only because there were 6 of us and there were 5 girls and 1 guy. So it's been a passion project of mine, and I've been using that also as a platform to interview people in the sustainability space. So we just featured like the director of sustainability innovation at VMware on Wednesday for Earth Day. So trying to use that as a platform to, encourage more people to study STEM, but also sustainability. So Pattie, when I first saw your video, I remember when it first came out and my friends and I were sending it around, and we were like, this is one of the best things I've ever seen, because so often studying this space and, having a career in this space, it's so easy to get like down in the dumps and think everything's pretty doomsday and all of that. So using your like uplifting and creative platform has been really inspiring to me to try to make it more fun and not just, hey, you guys shouldn't do this or the world's burning in this way. So that's a little bit background about me. Pattie, I'm excited to launch into the conversation. So I'm just curious what was your first vivid experience with nature, and when did you realize that was a passion of yours?
First vivid experience. One of my most vivid memories of childhood was recreating Cats the musical in my backyard on my playset, and I would jump off the swings and like terrible. I mean, actually, I'm gonna call it drag, but like, yeah, I would literally draw whiskers on my face with mud and like would like put mud around my eyes. And so apparently I've just been doing this shit my whole life. But I mean, yeah, I feel like most all of my memories from childhood were like outdoors. Then I like got into my like rollerblading phase and I was a blader, and I like watched the Disney Channel original movie Brink, and I was like so into that and all the bike paths. I don't know. I mean, pretty basic. But I feel like it's interesting because I mean, your second half of your question was like, when, what was the second question?
When
Like,
did you realize like how much
yeah.
you love Mother Nature?
I think I started realizing how much I love it when I started realizing like how much more I needed to love myself and like other people and other queer people, and make that an important part of my life, because in my life before Pattie, I didn't have queer community in any form. And I didn't also have like any community around nature almost in any form. But I used nature all the time. As a photographer, I was out in nature every day, like sunrise, sunset. I used it. I never protected it. I never loved it, but I used it all of the time. And I used it for profit, just like a freaking logger would. I would take people and photograph them in the outdoors. I'd trample natural grasses. I would like go places I wasn't supposed to go. I'd go in like protected prairies. Like I was a total shithead, you know? And like, I'm still living with that, but also like not beating myself over it, but being like, I didn't know, you know? And now I know. And so now my actions are going to look different. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's been a slow, but yeah, very fast evolution over the past year and a half. But I think that's like what can happen, right? Because I think it's never too late to change what you're doing, to change who you are, to change what you stand for. And I think the enemy is always like indifference and not knowing what you stand for and not knowing who you are. I think that's the real enemy here.
Yeah, I definitely feel that way too. It's weird. I've had similar realizations recently where 2019, last year, I wanted to be the year where I actually looked really hard at my personal footprint, because I felt like even though I'm studying environmental engineering, look, I'm doing things for the planet, but it's like, no, I'm really just learning about it so I can do things later. But I had a hard time actually taking a hard look at my, the plastic that I used every day, or the Ziplocs that I would still use, or
Totally.
some of the recyclable things that you're really lazy to clean out sometimes. Really hard to get into. So yeah, that's been a harder realization, but it's been healthy. It's been good to try to figure out, oh wow, like it's kind of stressful to think about the amount of waste we actually create once you start realizing how much you're doing it in your own life.
Totally. Could not agree more. Yeah. A hard look in the mirror, right? I think that's what quarantine is teaching all of us, is like we often live our lives one very, very, very purposeful distraction to the next. And now we're having to look in the mirror and realize, oh shit, that is all of my like waste in one trash can. Mm-hmm. Oh shit, like I am using so much in my daily life, even when I'm not going anywhere or doing anything. Or, oh, can this be a beautiful new beginning? Like, can I plant myself in some new, fresher soil, you know?
Yeah, totally. And you touched on that I definitely want to talk about. The loving nature is loving yourself. I think that's a really strong connection. That's really just sold it for me, because like nature's gotten me through breakups. It's gotten me through terrible anxiety, like all these different mental health problems. And the one comfort and like consistency in life is nature. But now it's kind of not becoming a guarantee with how the world's going. So it sounds like you've had a similar experience in terms of loving yourself, loving nature. So I'm wondering, how do you think we can encourage people to have that same experience, or do you think it's something that people kind of need to find on their own?
Well, I think that love encourages love. I think that like, also, I don't view it through this like Frou-Frou the Lens of like, I put on a pair of boots and like suddenly I was this new human. Like they just radically loved myself. Like, no fucking way. Like, it's gritty. It's hard. There's a lot of like, not wrong to recognize in it, but there's a lot of like unlearning. That's a process of it. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of like starting all over again, you know, in a lot of ways. And so I think that I just want to like make sure that that's a disclaimer. And I think that it's going to look different for everyone. I think we can find it in community. I think we have to find it alone a lot of the times. And I think we have to change the voice that we like speak to ourselves in our head. That's like a big thing that I try to do. Because my voice that I am to myself is not Pattie's voice to win. It's oftentimes you suck, you are terrible. And so I think self-love is kind of changing that voice.
Yeah.
Or just being, honestly, just being neutral about stuff. Like for me, like, I will not get in detail about this, but like, I almost don't love the self-love movement or the body positivity movement, because to me, I don't really find roots of my experience in that. I almost find it as just like, can I be like neutral about myself? Like, can myself just like serve me and be what I need it to be? Like, can I just be body neutral in a day? Awesome. Can I be enough for myself? Awesome. Can I like thank my body for doing what it does for me? And also like, I don't know. So I don't know. I think that I just want to demystify that like love can also just look like giving yourself time to figure it out. Like love can also just look like spending time out in nature, and just like you don't even realize how much you needed that until like 3 days later, you know?
Right.
So it doesn't have to be this like radical starting line journey. You know, I think it's going to look like very twisted and like growy, just like the beautiful tree that you are in the forest, you know, like no tree is just like this, you know, we are like these weird things, and that's beautiful.
Yeah, I watched this really good TED Talk on self-compassion, so I'm going to send that in the chat because I think that's a solution to a lot of problems.
Awesome.
So I saw your Everything to Lose spoken word with REI, and I thought it was very beautiful. And I've always found it a difficult balance between getting like dark and real about climate change and being hopeful and positive, so people don't feel helpless. I feel like it's a common, like a constant interplay between the two. So how did that factor putting together that collab with REI?
Totally. So I don't want to assume that like everyone here has seen it or knows. So I did a video with REI last year, or I had an opportunity to make a film. And kind of the ending part of the film was like the summation art piece off of like what I learned throughout my experience in the documentary, and also kind of the action that we took. And it was, I call it like Pattie's most Greta moment. Like I definitely was kind of like stormy and gloomy and like, but it definitely felt like it needed to happen, but yet also it kind of really needed to have like campy tropes. It needed to have like some wit to it. It needed to have entertainment. It needed to have gender bendy. It needed to have every outfit made of our found materials. And it needed to be a mix of that energy of like, we have work to do, but yet also like we all have boots that we can put on to do shit in our lives, you know? So like, I feel like what I often tell myself is like, it is radical to remain positive in this space. It is literally radical to remain hopeful. And I think like, if we can't have hope and love and like positivity, if we can't do it ourselves, why the hell would anyone else join us over here? You know what I mean? They're like, oh, that group hates the world and hates humans and is doom and gloom. I'm like, I don't want to hang out with them. You know, it's like, why can we not realize this? So I think that hope and making it fun and making it community-based is really important. Always remembering that there's work to do, always remembering that we have to keep ourselves accountable, but also just like, let's have fun, you know? Otherwise, why are we doing this? You know, obviously to save the planet, but like, why would we think that anyone else would join us, you know? So
yeah,
great point.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because it kind of ties into this one final question I saw Lauren pop on. But yeah, it kind of ties in like with how to, I feel like I've had so much difficulty in like trying to convince people to change their behavior. So I have a friend who he's literally told me, yeah, I'll recycle this smart water bottle, but I can't see the tangible effect of doing it. So it's like, it's hard to see it translate for people. And I've harped on my friends so much that some of them say like, before they do something that might be a little unsustainable, they literally see my face grimacing in their heads. And like, okay, well, that's great. But like, how can you sort of scale that sort of behavioral shift, and what can people do to like call to action? Because I know people want to help, but they don't necessarily know how.
Totally. Yeah, I just feel like I would echo exactly what you just said. Like that's yeah, I feel that all the time. Feel that.
Yeah, so I actually have a question from the audience that while we get the two other alumni back on to start the audience Q&A, I think that Avery and Pattie, I think this question kind of can get both of your perspectives. So the question is, someone's tuning in from Boise, Idaho. Beautiful place. And their question is, what as researchers, scientists, engineers can we do to work with influencers like you, Pattie? They continue on to say, clearly your voice matters. It would be amazing to combine your skills and voice with our skills and voices. So first, Avery, I'd love for you to, is there something that you're really excited about in research that you're doing, or a trend that you're excited in seeing, within sustainability? And maybe you and Pattie can jam on how to make that a story and how to storytell that.
Yeah, definitely. So one of the classes I teach is called Understanding Energy, and it's this survey class where we go into all of the energy resources, including fossil fuels. So we learn about how, coal is drilled and mined and how oil is refined. And the first half of the class is all about fossil fuels. And then we get this middle section about electricity, and then it transitions to renewables. So for me, something that I'm really passionate about is trying to convey how exciting of a time this is right now, because I'm with a teaching team of 3 other women, so we call ourselves the girl band. And when our first professor started teaching this 30 years ago, the energy mix was completely different. And then when the other professor taught it, 10 years ago, solar was still this, oh yeah, that sounds really great, but it'll never be cheap enough. And now when I'm helping teach the class, it's one of the fastest growing renewable energy resources in the world. So trying to show people and effectively communicate the process that we've made, and there is a lot of hope in that space. That's something that I want to try to set the context around, but it's hard outside of just my class, because 1, there's so much information, but 2, I also feel whenever I post about stuff that's, I don't know, a little more serious, people don't really want to hear about it,
Totally. Yeah. Love that. First of all, I would advocate huge for, I kind of hate the word influencer because I think there's so much weird connotation along with it, but yet I also totally accept it as what I am. But yet I think that also whatever, but I totally advocate for scientists and the humans that are doing the research and the work in one way to do the work on the other, as media platforms and media channels and creators and conceptors and producers. There needs to be way more of that. There needs to be way more science on Netflix. There needs to be way more natural environment stuff on Netflix. There needs to just be more stuff populating our feeds every day on social platforms. I feel so while what you mentioned is a very complex thing, and I totally would love to dive in with you, but I don't have a totally good answer about how I could weave that into something that I could make. I'll give you another example here that is something that's in progress, so I can tell you about it. So I'm working with a group of 14 climate activists in the Charlotte area that are part of Fridays for Future and the Sunrise Movement to create a how to do sustainability in the middle of a pandemic, and talking about what are the practical, if we can't control the amount of plastic we're doing, what can we do? If we can't control this, what can we control this way, and putting together a kind of a guide for that to happen. And that feels like a way for youth voices to be heard, for me to use my platform, and for it to be attainable to people in their everyday lives. I always think about what would I tell me 2 years ago that would get me to pay attention? Because I didn't give 2 shits 2 years ago. I'd be cool, science words, fun. I'm never going to get them, So how can I think about relating it to myself 2 years ago, or to a 14-year-old version of myself, or to a 65-year-old version of myself, And honestly, how can I, as a drag queen, also reach people that have a different political belief system as me, So I'm always thinking about what's my audience, How can I affect change with my audience? And also how can I make it fun and entertaining? One of my followers made this compost bucket that she named Compost Malone.
Oh my God, I saw that yesterday.
And I died. And I was this is amazing. And I was it's something as stupid simple as that. Because then literally I had hundreds of people DM me, and they were just oh my gosh, I'm totally writing Compost Malone and drawing a photo of Post Malone on my compost bin. And I'll totally compost Malone. I was fuck yeah. I'm there for that. Oftentimes we think that it needs to be this big solution thing, or even reductionist of making it into a guide or thing, but maybe it's just something that's silly and that's stupid, and I'm there for that. I think that that's fascinating to me.
Yeah, me too.
So
Awesome.
yeah.
I love that. Great, guys. So I just wanted to go into a few questions to actually pose to all of you guys. We're running a little bit out of time, but I wanted to get a few out to have each of your thoughts. So the first for this question, this is for Pattie. They asked, what are some queer-owned sustainable businesses worth supporting? And then for alumni to start thinking about, what are some sustainable businesses that are worth supporting, maybe within your community, or something that maybe the audience can start supporting as well if you want to start percolating on that, while maybe Pattie has her thoughts too, if she has any.
Love that so much. Disclaimer, I am realizing in quarantine how much I'm not buying, and also how much I was buying before. And so I would say, like, if you can repurpose or reuse something in your life, like, even though it seems awesome to support a queer-owned business, like, you're supporting yourself in the world by, like, just repurposing that thing. So start there. But then after that, queer-owned, and I'll say, like, also just like female or feminine energy-owned businesses too. That feels fun. Kula Cloth, for all of you people that identify as female in here, they make backcountry pea cloths that are literally like they control the. Hey Vasu, love you. What helicopter is overhead? Anyway, they make incredible like pea cloths. Fillery makes incredible zero waste soaps. My friend makes this incredible brand of, like, basically, let me find the actual name of it. Her name is Stevie, and she makes Yay for Earth, which is like a 100% like incredible just product that I use to like take up my makeup all the way to like moisturize my lips. But also, I think we always think of it as like individual products. I also think that a way that you can support queer businesses is like where you're actually spending your time, and in queer communities. Like an amazing mountain town like Bend, Oregon has a huge queer community that you can just support with your tourism dollars, all the way to, like, if you're going to a place and you're looking to hire a guide, like hire a guide of color or a queer person of color or a queer person. Like, so we often think of it as like those little commodities that we have, but also it can be truly like, maybe it's a queer-owned like hotel or business. And I think it's easier to find that now than ever with the internet and with social media. You can see the faces that run things. And I think that that's an awesome way to just think about it next level, So.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. It's not just about like materialistic items, but
like experiences too.
For sure.
Gosh.
Once we get into the place of being able to have more experiences, hopefully sooner rather than later, definitely integrate that into your thought process, everybody. Great. Does anybody else have some businesses worth supporting that they want to mention?
Yeah, I will always highlight people of color, specifically Indigenous people, because again, Indigenous people make the world go around, because capitalism is a virus. So I would recommend everyone to follow Social Distance Powwow on Facebook. It's a massive network that one of my friends made here in Bozeman, and now it has over 150,000 people that follow it around the country. And it's from Indigenous people from all around the country, the world, as well as allies that are interested in just learning about Indigenous culture. They have a lot of different artists and vendors and jewelry makers and all these amazing crafts and trade that they are posting about, as well as amazing, adorable videos of little children jingling and dancing and building that community. So I would recommend following Social Distance Powwow. It's not an Instagram, but it is a Facebook group. So that is my one plug.
Love it.
Awesome, thanks.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Avery or Ty, do you guys have, even if it's an organization like a nonprofit, do you guys have any, we definitely want to, everyone should follow Women in STEM on Facebook for sure, that Avery mentioned. Do you guys have any, say it again, Avery?
Oh yeah, Women of STEM, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, etc. But uplifting women. I'd say in general, from the more material side, because that's what I've been doing a lot of research into for my own personal footprint. My friend Sam, who's on this call, shout out Sam, she told me about Package Free Shop, which has a lot of great, much like very sustainable products. They have, like metal razors, everything. Like it's endless. And then also 3 Bluebirds, they do these Swedish dishcloths that replace paper towels, because I find like during a mess, I'll be lazy and I'll just use a paper towel, but that's a lot of waste too. And then there were a few small businesses, like there was this whole thing going around called I Stand With Small that United by Blue posted about, and Tentree. So I purchased actually a couple things from Good and Well Supply Co. I actually just happen to have them right next to me. But they had like an Earth Day candle, and like it's all these, like this local shop that makes it in Washington. And so you don't need to get things from, you know, the big Targets or whatever. And there's some like National Park themed lotion, stuff like that. So just being more intentional with your purchases.
Hell yeah.
Love that. I'm just going to echo Vasu, just Indigenous people, Indigenous owned companies. That's like the way to go. And then Melissa, I think you had a post of a bunch of different companies. I'm not finding it right now, but if I do, I'll also send that out, because that looked great.
Yeah, I think I saw that on the chat bar, but thanks guys. Was there anything else, Ty? I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, that's it for now.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Awesome. And then last question for everybody, and we'll keep it short since we got 4 minutes left, unfortunately. Like we said at the beginning of this meeting, you know, it's all about taking action and mobilizing for change. And so something that we've ended each of these panels and conversations with this week is like having one action item for every audience member to take with them after this. So let's give everybody like maybe one thing to do after this to mobilize for change for the environment. I know we've had a ton of action points in this session, so maybe if there's something to like summarize it all, or one that is, you know, a priority. I love all of your guys's you know, thoughts on that.
Love it. I'll make mine very simple. Have your voice be heard.
Love it. Anybody else have an action item in mind?
I'm just going to add to Pattie's, because I think she spoke that earlier, but doing something that you think is amazing and that you're proud about, just sharing that with people. So getting that voice out. And I think we've talked about this many times, but starting with yourself, just like making sure that you're living sustainably, and then people will see how happy and amazing your life is, and hopefully that can spread.
Definitely. Joy is really important right now as well too. So keep spreading that joy, everybody. Avery or Vasu, do you guys have any action items?
Yeah, I do. So this is kind of more of a but since we're all on quarantine, some of you might be quarantining at home with your family, and your family might be of a different, you know, political viewpoint that you are. So I'll just encourage you to have a conversation with someone who might not have the same viewpoint as you around sustainability, and just have an open discourse about it. Personally, like my extended family's from Utah, and my very favorite uncle, who I love dearly, gave me a book on why climate change isn't real when I said I was studying environmental engineering when I was 18. So, I mean, I still love him, of course, but it just opened up this whole discourse about, you know, why our opinions differ, and just having an open conversation about it. So I encourage you guys to have one conversation in quarantine, whether you're quarantining with people from your family or just calling up a friend that might have a different viewpoint. And just make it positive. Don't like trigger them or anything.
Love that. I think it's so important to have conversations with people of different opinions. It enables us to communicate better. Everyone's coming from a different perspective, so it's important to learn how to have those conversations. So great point, Avery. Vasu, last but not least.
I always tell people to strengthen their uncomfortable muscle. So being comfortable with being uncomfortable. So as Avery was saying, like having these hard conversations, putting yourself out there, finding out what drives you, motivates you, whatever it works. There's going to be a lot of ups and downs through all these processes. I know I've had a lot. I've definitely cried myself to sleep several nights, maybe this week. But yeah, just understanding that like life is not about being comfortable, even if we live in such a privileged world. And, you know, we have to work around being uncomfortable, because people that we're impacting, the way I see it is like the environment affects all of us, but it specifically disproportionately impacts marginalized communities a lot more. So like, you know, the disparity between being uncomfortable because of climate change versus being uncomfortable because of a different conversation or different opinion is drastic. And just being aware of, you know, having those conversations is so important to bridge gaps between different communities.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Festu. I want to thank all of you guys again for being here. It's been such an amazing conversation, and I'm sure that everyone listening has had some amazing, you know, thought bubbles in their brain and start percolating ways to affect change in their life and within their community. So thank you all again for being here. And Pattie, do you have any last words that you want to give to everybody listening before we jump off?
Thank you for listening. Seriously. And also, like, do not be a stranger. That seems cliche to say, but there have been so many people that I've met this year that I've gone on group hikes with, that I have learned from, that pop in my inbox with incredible perspective about things. So like, I think of y'all as incredibly brilliant people. And if you want whatever you're working on or you're passionate about, if you want me to know more about it, like literally reach out. I genuinely mean that. I think it's going to take a lot of us to be way more interconnected than we are. So reach out, and thank you for your time. Thanks, Green Program. Seriously, this has been like awesome. And it's had my brain chugging so much. I've been making like little notes as we've gone like the whole entire time. And there's so many great takeaways, even just from the other people that were also, I'm considering them guest speakers. So thank you so much, Ty and Vasu and Avery. I really appreciate the time to dialogue with y'all too. You bring incredibly beautiful perspectives to this conversation as well.
Love it. Pattie, just to know, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
I guess the only social media platform that I do anything on is Instagram, but also I'm going to do a TikTok within the next week. So
love it.
You're hearing it here first. And we'll see what happens. It will probably be a dumpster fire. So YOLO.
Got it. So connect with Pattie on Instagram and definitely follow her. And again, thank you everyone for being here. If you want to learn more about, thank you. And if you want to learn more about the Green Program and what we do and being more involved in this community of sustainability leaders, and please check out our website. And we're, looking for more people to join our community, within this upcoming year. So learn more on our website, and we'll hopefully have more amazing conversations like this on our programs and through different platforms of conversation. So, stay tuned within our community, and thanks again for being here. But we'll say goodbye, and everyone have a great weekend and a great Friday.